Have you ever wondered what really happened behind the dazzling lights of old Hollywood? Beneath the polished glamour and golden legends, a world of secrets, scandals, and tragedies simmered just out of sight. What if the stories you thought were too strange for fiction were, in fact, entirely true? Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtain to reveal 20 of the most bizarre, jaw-dropping tales from Hollywood's most iconic era. Stories of mystery, betrayal, curses, and legendary stars whose lives spiraled far from the silver screen. These aren't urban legends. These are true accounts from the city of dreams, where reality was often far stranger than anything seen in the movies. The Black Dahlia Murder. The 1947 murder of Elizabeth Short, forever known as the Black Dahlia, remains one of Hollywood's most notorious and mysterious crimes. Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress, was found brutally murdered in a vacant Los Angeles lot. Her body had been severed in half and grotesquely posed, sending shockwaves through the city and sparking a media frenzy. The grisly nature of the crime, combined with Short's connection to the world of aspiring starlets, fueled endless speculation. Newspapers published lurid, often fabricated details, turning Short into a kind of dark celebrity. Suspects included everyone from local mobsters and corrupt cops to Hollywood insiders. The sheer brutality of the crime, coupled with the lack of solid leads, ensured that the mystery only deepened with time. Despite exhaustive police investigations, confessions, and theories, some suggesting the killer was a skilled surgeon, the murder was never solved. The Black Dahlia case became a symbol of lost innocence and shattered dreams, haunting Hollywood for decades. Short's story is a chilling reminder of the dangers that sometimes waited just off stage for those chasing stardom in Hollywood's shadowy corners. Errol Flynn's wild scandals. Errol Flynn was the ultimate swashbuckler, charming, athletic, and impossibly handsome. Audiences loved him as the dashing hero in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. But behind the scenes, Flynn's real life was even wilder than his on-screen adventures. Flynn developed a reputation for hard partying, womanizing, and heavy drinking. Rumors of affairs with underage girls, wild orgies, and even espionage dogged him throughout his career. In 1942, he faced charges of statutory rape involving two teenage girls, a national sensation at the time. The press gleefully documented every sordid detail. Although Flynn was acquitted, his reputation never fully recovered. His personal life was equally chaotic. He was married multiple times, with each relationship marked by infidelity and public drama. His love of alcohol became legendary, contributing to a steady decline in his health. At the height of World War II, rumors even circulated that he was a Nazi spy, though no evidence was ever produced. Flynn's star eventually faded, but his legend endured, equal parts rogue, hero, and cautionary tale. His life stands as a reminder that the line between Hollywood fiction and reality is sometimes thinner than a sword's edge. The troubled life of Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer's life was a whirlwind of talent, rebellion, and tragedy. A stunning actress with a fierce spirit, Farmer dazzled audiences with roles in films like Come and Get It and Rhythm on the Range. But her refusal to play by Hollywood's rules made her a target. Farmer openly criticized the superficiality of the film industry and clashed with studio executives. Her personal problems, exacerbated by the relentless pressures of fame, soon spiraled. Arrests for disorderly conduct and drinking landed her in the tabloids, who painted her as a wild and ungrateful starlet. Diagnosed with mental illness, Farmer was confined to various psychiatric hospitals, where she allegedly suffered brutal treatments, electroconvulsive therapy, ice baths, and, according to some rumors, even a lobotomy. Though that claim remains unconfirmed, her family had little power to intervene, and Farmer was lost to the system for years. Released in the 1950s, she attempted a modest comeback, but never regained her former stardom. Farmer died in 1970, largely forgotten by the industry she had once challenged. Her story stands as a grim reminder of how Hollywood could devour those who refused to be molded to its will. The mysterious death of Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's life was as dramatic as any Hollywood script. A child star who grew into acclaimed adult roles in films like Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story, Wood captured hearts with her vulnerability and beauty, but her sudden and suspicious death in 1981 cast a permanent shadow over her legacy. On a November night, Wood went missing from the yacht Splendor, anchored near California's Catalina Island. On board were her husband, actor Robert Wagner, and her co-star Christopher Walken. After a night of drinking and reported arguments, Wood's body was found floating in the water, wearing only a nightgown and socks. The official cause of death was accidental drowning, but rumors of foul play persisted. Witnesses claimed to have heard shouting and raised voices from the yacht. Wood was known to be afraid of dark water, making it unlikely she'd leave the boat alone. The case was reopened years later, with Wagner named a person of interest, but no charges were ever filed. The circumstances of Natalie Wood's death remain hotly debated, a real-life mystery worthy of Hollywood's greatest noir films, the mysterious murder of William Desmond Taylor. William Desmond Taylor's murder was the crime that rocked early Hollywood and set the template for a century of celebrity scandal. A respected film director and president of the Motion Picture Directors Association, Taylor was found shot dead in his Los Angeles bungalow in 1922. The case quickly grew more complicated as police discovered Taylor had lived under a false identity and had a criminal past in Ireland. His inner circle included some of Hollywood's most famous actresses, including Mabel Normand and Mary Miles Minter, whose love letters to Taylor were found and made public. Rumors of drugs, love triangles, and secret affairs flooded the newspapers. Police followed countless leads, but the case remained unsolved. The public, both fascinated and horrified, demanded reform, and the scandal contributed to calls for greater censorship in the film industry. Taylor's murder remains one of Hollywood's most notorious unsolved crimes, a story of ambition, passion, and intrigue that captured the world's attention and left an enduring mark on the industry. Alexander Pantages' ruined empire. Alexander Pantages was a kingmaker in early Hollywood, a theater mogul who helped shape the entertainment industry in the West. But in 1929, Pantages became the center of a scandal that would destroy his empire. He was accused of sexually assaulting 17-year-old dancer Eunice Pringle in his Los Angeles office. The media, fueled by anti-immigrant sentiment and sensationalism, portrayed Pantages as a villain and Pringle as an innocent victim. The trial was marked by weak evidence and contradictions, but Pantages was convicted and sentenced to 50 years in prison. His legal team appealed, and in a second trial, new evidence exonerated him. The prosecution's case unraveled, and Pringle's testimony was discredited. Still, the damage was irreversible. Pantages was forced to sell his theater chain at a loss, his reputation permanently tainted. Pantages' downfall is a cautionary tale of how public opinion, fueled by a hungry media, can shape justice and destroy a legacy overnight. Even in Hollywood, where reputations are carefully crafted, everything can unravel in an instant. The Fatty Arbuckle scandal. Old Hollywood may be remembered for its glitz and glamour, but the darkness lurking behind the camera was very real. Few stories embody this better than the tragic scandal of Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. At the height of his career in the early 1920s, Arbuckle was one of the most beloved silent film comedians in America. With his childlike charm and boundless energy, he was adored by audiences everywhere, and his slapstick routines made him a household name. But everything changed during a Labor Day weekend party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco in 1921. Among the guests was a young, aspiring actress named Virginia Rapp. She fell seriously ill under mysterious circumstances and died just days later. Rumors immediately began to swirl, and the press, always hungry for scandal, was quick to paint Arbuckle as a heartless villain. The wildest accusations, many of them fabricated or exaggerated, dominated headlines across the nation. Arbuckle was arrested and charged with manslaughter. 3 separate trials followed, with the first 2 ending in hung juries. In the third, Arbuckle was acquitted, and the jury even issued a public apology, calling him the victim of a grave injustice. But the damage was done. Arbuckle's films were banned, his friends abandoned him, and the public shunned him. The scandal set off a media frenzy and led Hollywood executives to impose stricter codes of conduct on their stars. Arbuckle's rise and fall became a cautionary tale, a chilling example of how quickly Hollywood fame could vanish, consumed by rumor, scandal, and the court of public opinion. The Misfits Curse. If there was ever a film production haunted by misfortune, it was The Misfits. Released in 1961, the film was meant to be a defining moment for its cast and crew. Written by playwright Arthur Miller for his wife Marilyn Monroe, The Misfits boasted an all-star lineup: Monroe herself, Clark Gable, and Montgomery Clift. It should have been a triumph. Instead, the production became notorious for chaos and tragedy. The film was plagued from the start. Filming in the brutal Nevada desert took a physical toll on the actors, none more so than Clark Gable, who insisted on performing his own stunts, including wrestling wild mustangs under the relentless sun. Just days after filming wrapped, Gable suffered a massive heart attack and died at only 59 years old. Many blame the strenuous shoot and his declining health for his death. Meanwhile, Marilyn Monroe, at the center of both the film and the chaos, was struggling with depression, addiction, and the end of her marriage to Miller. Her behavior on set was erratic and delayed production repeatedly. Less than 2 years after the film's release, Monroe herself was found dead in her Los Angeles home of an apparent overdose, just 36 years old. Montgomery Clift, already battling the long-term effects of a devastating car accident, saw his health spiral after the film. He died of a heart attack in 1966 at age 45. The eerie succession of tragedy led many to declare The Misfits cursed. Instead of a cinematic triumph, it became a symbol of Hollywood's dark side, where ambition, talent, and personal demons collide, sometimes with heartbreaking consequences. The tragic death of George Reeves. He was the man of steel to millions, a symbol of truth, justice, and the American way. But off-screen, George Reeves's life was far less heroic, and his death remains one of old Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. In the 1950s, Reeves was the star of the Adventures of Superman television series, winning the adoration of children and adults alike. Yet for Reeves, the Superman role became a double-edged sword. Typecast and unable to land serious movie roles, Reeves struggled both professionally and financially. Casting directors and producers couldn't see past the red cape and blue tights. Frustrated and boxed in by his superhero image, Reeves found himself at a crossroads in his career and his life. On a June night in 1959, tragedy struck. Reeves was found dead in his bedroom from a gunshot wound to the head. The official ruling was suicide, but the circumstances raised more questions than answers. Reeves's fiancée, Leonore Lemon, and a few friends were in the house that night. Accounts of arguments and suspicious behavior surfaced. Some pointed the finger at MGM executive Eddie Mannix, whose wife had previously been involved with Reeves. Others suspected Lemon herself, or even an accidental shooting. Despite decades of speculation, the truth has never come to light. Was it suicide, murder, or something else? The shock of Superman's death rocked the nation. Children in particular couldn't comprehend how their invincible hero could meet such an end. To this day, the death of George Reeves is shrouded in rumor and uncertainty, a sobering reminder that even those who seem invincible on screen may be fighting unseen battles behind the scenes. The mysterious end of Thelma Todd. Nicknamed the Ice Cream Blonde, Thelma Todd was one of the brightest comedic stars of the late 1920s and early 1930s. Known for her quick wit and beauty, she starred alongside the Marx Brothers and other comedy greats, becoming a favorite in both short films and feature-length productions. But Thelma's life took a tragic and mysterious turn in December 1935. After attending a party thrown by fellow comedian Stan Laurel, Thelma was found dead in her car the next morning, her lifeless body slumped in the driver's seat, the engine still running. The car was parked inside a garage belonging to her ex-lover and business partner Roland West. The official cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning, and authorities ruled it accidental, suggesting she may have started the car to keep warm on a chilly night. But the rumors didn't stop there. Many believed there was more to the story. Todd had been under immense personal stress, dealing with complicated business affairs and troubled relationships. Conflicting statements from Roland West. Rumors of love triangles and suggestions of mob involvement. Todd had reportedly refused to allow her cafe to be used for illegal gambling, swirled in the press. Some speculated she'd been locked in the garage as a form of punishment, only to die by mistake. The case has never been fully resolved, and conspiracy theories have only grown over the decades. Was her death truly an accident, or did she fall victim to Hollywood's darker forces? Thelma Todd's tragic end remains one of the most enduring and haunting mysteries of Hollywood's golden age. Lloyd's secret disability. In the world of silent cinema, few stars shone as brightly or took as many risks as Lloyd. Renowned for his daredevil stunts and infectious, everyman charm, Lloyd was a pioneer of physical comedy and an innovator in the genre. Audiences marveled at his ability to pull off death-defying feats on screen. But what they didn't know was that Lloyd was hiding a secret, one that could have ended his career before it truly began. In 1919, while participating in a publicity photo shoot, Lloyd was handed what he believed was a harmless prop bomb. To his horror, the prop exploded in his hand, costing him his right thumb and index finger and leaving him temporarily blinded. For most, such a devastating injury would have spelled the end. But Lloyd refused to let tragedy define him. Ingeniously, he wore a specially designed glove fitted with prosthetic fingers and learned to perform with his remaining hand. He continued executing jaw-dropping stunts, most famously clinging to a giant clock face in the 1923 classic Safety Last. Few realized that in these iconic scenes, Lloyd was hanging on for dear life with just one fully functional hand. For years, Lloyd kept his disability secret from the public, determined that his audiences would see only the illusion of perfection. His perseverance and refusal to give up made him not just a comedy legend, but also an inspiration, proving that even in Hollywood, sometimes the greatest stunts happen far from the camera's gaze. Judy Garland's studio abuse. To generations, Judy Garland is Dorothy, the girl in the ruby slippers who followed the yellow brick road in The Wizard of Oz. Her voice and presence seem magical, radiating hope and innocence. But behind the curtain, Garland's life was a far cry from the fantasy she portrayed. Like many child stars, she became a victim of the studio system's relentless pursuit of perfection. Signed by MGM at just 13, Judy was thrust into a world where her every move was controlled. Studio executives dictated her diet and weight, going so far as to provide her with appetite suppressants to keep her thin for the camera. To endure the grueling filming schedules, she was given amphetamines to stay awake and barbiturates to sleep, a dangerous cycle that led to lifelong addiction. Judy's struggles did not end with adolescence. She was constantly berated about her appearance and self-worth by powerful men who only saw her as a commodity. Nervous breakdowns followed, and by 1950, MGM, once her greatest champion, fired her. Determined to reclaim her career, Garland turned to stage and concert work, delivering legendary performances, but her personal demons never truly faded. In 1969, Judy Garland was found dead in her London bathroom from an accidental overdose. She was just 47 years old. Her story is one of both extraordinary talent and heartbreaking exploitation, a vivid reminder of the heavy price fame could exact in Hollywood's golden age. The Bette Davis versus Joan Crawford feud. Hollywood has seen its fair share of rivalries, but none were as intense or as infamous as the decades-long feud between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Both women were legendary actresses, fiercely talented, ambitious, and unafraid to challenge the system. But their animosity ran deep, fueled by jealousy, romantic rivalry, and a fierce competition for roles and accolades. Their bitter relationship reportedly began in the 1930s, when Joan Crawford married actor Franchot Tone, a man Bette Davis was said to be deeply in love with. From that point on, the two women became locked in a professional and personal Cold War. Each regarded the other with suspicion and contempt. Davis prided herself on her serious approach to acting, dismissing Crawford as a mere glamour queen. Crawford, meanwhile, believed Davis envied her popularity and beauty. Their feud reached its peak in 1962 when both agreed, reluctantly, to star in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The film, about two aging, feuding sisters, became a box office sensation, in part because the on-screen hatred mirrored their real-life animosity. Davis reportedly kicked Crawford during filming, causing injury, while Crawford, knowing Davis suffered from back pain, loaded her costume with weights in a scene that required Davis to drag her. The feud did not stop there. When Davis was nominated for an Oscar and Crawford was not, Crawford volunteered to accept the award on behalf of any absent nominees, and did so, upstaging Davis. Even after Crawford's death in 1977, Davis quipped, "You should never say bad things about the dead, only good." Joan Crawford is dead. Good. Their rivalry became legend, a cautionary tale about pride, power, and the dark side of stardom. The casting couch. While Hollywood's golden age shone with promise and glamour, its shadows hid one of the industry's darkest secrets: the casting couch. The term refers to the long-standing, systemic abuse of power by studio executives, producers, and directors who demanded sexual favors from aspiring actresses, and sometimes actors, in exchange for roles, career advancement, or simply a chance to audition. The casting couch was an open secret. Studio heads like Louis B. Mayer, Harry Cohn, and Darryl F. Zanuck were notorious for their predatory behavior. Young hopefuls, eager to make their dreams come true, were often vulnerable to manipulation and coercion. Declining in advance could mean career suicide. Giving in could haunt them for years. Some, like Marilyn Monroe and Judy Garland, later spoke out about their experiences, hinting at the emotional toll it took. For decades, Hollywood's power structure protected perpetrators and silenced victims. The threat of being labeled difficult or uncooperative kept many from coming forward. Only much later, as society's attitudes changed, did stories of the casting couch come to light, helping spark the modern movement against workplace abuse. The casting couch is now viewed as a shameful chapter in film history, a painful reminder that unchecked power can breed exploitation, and that Hollywood's dazzling lights often cast very long shadows. Peggant Whistles leap from the Hollywood sign. Hollywood is a land of dreams, but for some, those dreams can turn into nightmares. No story captures this more hauntingly than that of Peggant Whistle, the young actress whose final, desperate act transformed her into a symbol of lost hope. Born in England and raised in the U.S., Peg found early acclaim on the Broadway stage and set her sights on film stardom in Los Angeles. In 1932, after landing her first movie role in 13 Women, Peg hoped for a breakthrough. But her role was largely cut from the final film, and the Great Depression made work scarce. As months passed and opportunities dried up, Peg's optimism faded. On a September night, she left her uncle's Hollywood home, climbed the steep slope to the Hollywoodland sign, and made her way up the giant H. She jumped to her death at age 24. Peg's body was discovered 2 days later, alongside a note expressing her hopelessness. Her tragic story made headlines and became an urban legend. Over the years, people have reported seeing a ghostly woman in 1930s clothing near the sign or catching the scent of gardenias, Peg's favorite perfume. Her death remains one of Hollywood's most poignant cautionary tales, a reminder that the price of fame and its absence can be unbearably high. The downfall of Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, her name evokes beauty, vulnerability, and legend. Rising from a tumultuous childhood to become the world's most famous blonde bombshell, Monroe epitomized both the allure and the anguish of Hollywood stardom. Despite her immense success in classics like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Some Like It Hot, Monroe's personal life was defined by struggle. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, Monroe spent much of her youth in foster care and orphanages. The studios capitalized on her sensuality, but often typecast her as the dumb blonde, denying her the serious roles she craved. Off-screen, Monroe endured 3 divorces, including to baseball icon Joe DiMaggio and playwright Arthur Miller, and struggled with mental health issues and addiction to sleeping pills and painkillers. By the early 1960s, her fame couldn't shield her from heartbreak or exploitation. Rumors about affairs with John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy swirled, while her behavior became increasingly erratic. On August 5, 1962, Monroe was found dead in her Brentwood home at just 36. The official cause was an overdose, But conspiracy theories, ranging from mob hits to government silencing, have flourished ever since. Monroe's tragic end turned her into a symbol of the costs of celebrity. She remains an icon, both for her enduring charisma and as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of fame. Howard Hughes' descent into madness. Howard Hughes was a man of many faces: dashing aviator, brilliant engineer, Hollywood producer, and eventually notorious recluse. In the 1930s and 1940s, Hughes dazzled Hollywood with big-budget productions like Hell's Angels and The Outlaw, pushing the boundaries of technology and taste. His perfectionism was legendary, often causing massive production delays and ballooning budgets. But Hughes's brilliance was rivaled by his eccentricity. A notorious germaphobe, he gradually withdrew from public life, developing extreme rituals to avoid contamination. As the years passed, his fear of illness became paralyzing. He wore tissue boxes on his feet, used dozens of handkerchiefs a day, and forbade staff from looking directly at him. He lived for months in darkened, sealed-off hotel rooms, making business decisions by memo. Despite his worsening mental health, Hughes maintained control of his vast empire, acquiring airlines, casinos, and television stations, often without leaving his suite. Lawsuits and financial troubles mounted as his grip on reality weakened. By the time of his death in 1976, Hughes was virtually unrecognizable. Malnourished, disheveled, and isolated. He was a ghost of the man who had once conquered Hollywood in the skies. Howard Hughes's descent into madness is both fascinating and tragic, a stark reminder that wealth and genius can't always buy peace of mind. Rudolph Valentino and the Cursed Ring. Rudolph Valentino was Hollywood's first great heartthrob. With his smoldering looks and magnetic presence, he sent audiences into a frenzy in silent film classics like The Sheik and Blood and Sand. But Valentino's meteoric rise was matched only by the drama of his untimely death and the legend of the Cursed Ring. In 1926, Valentino collapsed in New York and was rushed to the hospital with severe abdominal pain. Diagnosed with perforated ulcers and peritonitis, he died at just 31. His funeral drew over 100,000 grieving fans, some so distraught they reportedly took their own lives. The hysteria only grew as rumors swirled around a ring Valentino had purchased, despite being warned it was cursed. According to the legend, after Valentino started wearing the ring, he experienced a string of bad luck, film failures, health woes, and ultimately his death. The ring's curse didn't end there. Subsequent owners, including close friends and colleagues, met with misfortune, illness, or ruin, perpetuating the story of its dark power. Adding to the mythos was the Lady in Black, a mysterious woman who appeared at Valentino's tomb every year, shrouded in mourning, her identity a matter of speculation for decades. The story of Valentino and his cursed ring remains one of Hollywood's eeriest and most enduring tales, blending real tragedy with timeless legend. The Hollywood Blacklist. The late 1940s and 1950s brought not just new movies, but a wave of paranoia that swept through Hollywood like wildfire. In the grip of Cold War fears, politicians began to suspect that communist propaganda was infiltrating American films. The House Un-American Activities Committee began summoning Hollywood figures to testify about their political beliefs and associations. 10 industry professionals, later known as the Hollywood 10, refused to cooperate, citing their First Amendment rights. They were found in contempt of Congress and sentenced to prison. The studios, fearful of public backlash and government scrutiny, quickly instituted an unofficial blacklist, barring anyone accused of communist sympathies from working in Hollywood. Careers were ruined overnight. Talented writers, actors, and directors either left the country, worked under pseudonyms, or abandoned the industry entirely. Screenwriter Dalton Trumbo famously wrote under false names, even as his scripts won Oscars. Charlie Chaplin, suspected of leftist leanings, moved to Switzerland in exile. Director Elia Kazan saved his own career by naming names, but forever stained his reputation in the process. The Hollywood Blacklist era was a time of fear, betrayal, and creative stagnation. Its scars are still felt today, a dark chapter when suspicion and politics trumped freedom and artistry, trapped by the studio system. For all its glamour, Hollywood's golden age could feel more like a prison than a paradise, especially for its biggest stars. From the 1920s to the early 1950s, the major studios, the Big Five, controlled every aspect of their actors' lives. Long-term contracts bound stars to a single studio, dictating what roles they could play, how they dressed, who they dated, and even their names. Studios went to great lengths to craft and maintain star personas. Norma Jean Baker became Marilyn Monroe, Lucille LeSueur was transformed into Joan Crawford, and Archibald Leach became Cary Grant. Backstories and relationships were invented or hidden for publicity. If a star refused a role or tried to step out of line, studios could suspend them without pay or ruin their reputation. Some, like Bette Davis and Olivia de Havilland, bravely fought back in court. De Havilland's lawsuit against Warner Brothers led to a landmark ruling limiting studio contract lengths, opening the door for greater independence. Still, for many, the studio system was a gilded cage, offering wealth and fame at the cost of freedom. The system produced countless classics and legendary stars, but also left behind a legacy of exploitation, lost dreams, and personal tragedy. If you found these unbelievable Hollywood stories as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales from the past. Let us know in the comments which story shocked you the most, or if you have your own bizarre Hollywood fact to share. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.